So I was asked to spearhead this content, and immediately the question was, what am I trying to accomplish here? Nothing is as it seems, and why do I need to perform this for you? I have 45 minutes to get you all to understand that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, we're a industry that's focused on net square footage, exhibit space. Are we bigger or smaller than last year? That isn't really how you drive a successful event. Again, another point that I need you to walk away from this is engagement is value. Okay, you got to look at your event holistically. On this chart, and I'm going to leave this up there the whole time. These are the three constituents of any event: the organizer, the attendees, and the exhibitors. If you look at them individually, you're not going to make the best decision for your show. If you look at where the intersections come, that is where the value lies. And then understanding that at times, this decision is going to be made for you. As I was trying to come up with the concept for this, I thought, what better way than to scare you? Okay? So I've, not necessarily with Brian, but with Brian's case study. Because I need you to be open and accepting of the content that's going to come after me. Okay? So let me see a show of hands. If I could say I'd hire you right now to run a 609,000 net square foot show, who'd want it? Who'd want to run that show? 45,000 attendees, 609,000 net square feet. Very nice, right? What if I told you in 4 years it was going to be 165,000 net square feet and 11,000 attendees? Pretty scary. Don't you agree? So that is why I brought Brian here. So Brian and I are going to talk a little bit about his case study and his journey with the kitchen and bath industry show. As a backup, the last time I was on stage with Brian, we karaoke'd Backstreet Boys. Yeah. So if you are not engaged, they'll hit the music.
Just give me a minute to stretch before we do that, okay?
We were a bit younger then. So, Brian, I created a grim picture for you from 2007 to 2013. When I left Nielsen, now Emerald, we were selling elevator sponsorships for $120,000. Tell me what happened and why this decline happened.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. This is only about the 100th time I've given the group therapy session. Sometimes in front of other show organizers, sometimes in front of people that really aren't aware. But it was a rapid decline. We all do our strategic plans and we have our SWOT analysis, and we know, hey, what road bumps are lying ahead or what we think could be a hiccup. And we saw a decline in housing coming. We were actually prepared for a decline in housing to come. What we weren't prepared was the rapid decline that came when the bubble didn't just burst, it exploded. Right. And really, none of us had seen this in our lifetime, this rapid decline. We've been through a number of recessions, but nothing to this magnitude. So really it went from being this massive show that was really a representation of the market. More money, more glitz, more glamour. It was great when Kohler would do a Cirque du Soleil event in a 20,000 square foot booth. Mm-hmm. But when they're not pushing plumbing fixtures, there's not the funds to support that. So their footprint would radically decline, and in turn their level of investment. So it was really an issue where we were fighting outside control, first and foremost the market, and the rapid decline within the market. But then it was a perception issue. If this brand isn't there, then why should I come? Or if the people aren't coming as a brand, why should I be there? Or if I can't be there at a certain level, why should I bother coming at all? And then it quickly transitioned to perception became reality. So both our key brands and manufacturers weren't selling product because housing was dead. And frankly, our designers, our builders, our architects, our remodelers weren't doing anything. So they were down to skeleton crews, and frankly, even if there was business to be had, they couldn't afford to spend the time away. So it was just a number of things that really kind of culminated, and it was really an overcorrection relative to how the show was following the industry. And we had to spend a number of years in trying to address both attendees, key brands that weren't there, as well as press, which is a very important component of what KBIS is about.
So that being said, when you saw the need for change and Nielsen, now Emerald, bought into the need for change, what was the basis for this? What did you decide, okay, we're changing our thought process to?
Well, first there was just trying to stabilize things. To put it in perspective, in 2008, so really the recession, we started feeling the impacts right after 2007. The event had declined about 30,000 square feet going into 2008. But it wasn't anything that we were overly concerned with. We were cautious, but not overly concerned. Going into 2009, we went from 572,000 square feet down to 330,000. Barbara Stroop's in the audience somewhere, and we laugh about the time that we literally had to take C Hall here at the World Congress Center, dump it into A Hall, and change permanent signage because we lost that much space. We went from being full facility to barely filling 2 buildings. So we had to get creative, and once we got past the bailing water and just trying to stabilize, we realized that our approach to the market was just completely off. We needed to focus more on a needs assessment. What kept our exhibitors up at night? What was their go-to-market strategy? And how could we, one, help them to fulfill that, but then also understanding how the attendees valued the experience. And we quickly realized it wasn't the 9 to 5 for 3 days that the attendees cared about. It was from the moment they set foot into that particular destination till the moment they leave. And so often we would try and fight these off-site events. Oh, I'm going to Vegas. There's too much to distract them. Or this exhibitor or potentially non-exhibitors trying to have an event. So, we really started to embrace that whole experience. They're not just coming to walk your trade show floor. They're coming to see their friends, go have dinner with customers, experience a destination, just get out of that office. So, we really took a holistic approach and tried to align what our vendor needs were with our audience needs. And once we had a better idea of how those came together, I think we were better positioned to approach the market with a stronger offering.
That being said, if you think that having the current model of employees, of infrastructure and things like that accomplish something completely different, you're probably foolish in that assumption. So what did you do internally to set the stage for this?
Well, first and foremost, it became, we refocused our efforts on the exhibitors. It was no longer a transactional environment. When everything's great, you're dialing for dollars, but you're doing more placing of space rather than understanding what that exhibitor's wants and needs are, what their goals are. And there's not a one-size-fits-all. It just depends on the brand and the category. What are they trying to accomplish? In the kitchen and bath industry, it's two-step distribution. So Kohler doesn't sell direct. Kohler doesn't know who their exhibitors are, or their customers are. They have created relationships and attempted to pull through, but that goes through a distributor. So they really value the experience differently. It's about launching product. It's about meeting the press. It's about reestablishing the brand dominance within the market space. So, we've really focused our efforts on trying to help them better accomplish that. There are smaller brands that are just trying to get into the space. Maybe it's an international brand that's looking for distribution, so we're helping them there. That's more important than the leads. So it's all about understanding the individual wants and needs and creating a relationship with our customers rather than sitting there trying to put them in a box. And as we progressed along and eventually decided to co-locate with the International Builder Show in 2014, it became less about us and more about them. It's not where we want you to fit in this experience, it's where do you fit and how can we help you to be successful?
Absolutely. So, as you referenced transactional dialing for dollars, did you find that the salesperson who was successful at its peak was going to be successful in the new consultative approach?
No, we had change. And it's not that our staff wasn't good before. We had an excellent staff. But what we needed out of them had evolved. And it was just one of those things where over time, change is inevitable. So, we brought in a different kind of salesperson, someone that was really focused on that, that account management and understanding the wants and needs and getting out in the market. We never used to send our salespeople out in the marketplace to meet with customers. We're doing that much more. But, another key component is we also changed our marketing approach. From an audience standpoint, it's not a one-size-fits-all, click here and register. We're doing geo-targeting. We're focusing on categories. We're constantly looking at, what's driving audience or what's driving a reaction, and then we're attempting to replicate that. So, it's a lot more work for us as an organizer, but we're much better positioned to communicate with the various stakeholders in the marketplace and be more successful in doing that.
So tell me a little bit about how you gathered intelligence about what the exhibitor was looking for, what the attendee was looking for. How did you didn't speculate, how did you get this information?
Well, it was a variety of things. First, there were a number of individual conversations that we would have. We would do focus groups. We do a lot of ongoing research, and we continue to compile that. But one of the biggest indicators is, so, everyone focuses on the Net Promoter Score, which is, I think, a valuable tool. But I'd bet you everybody in here, if you look at it, your attendees have a much higher view of you than your exhibitors. And it's not that your event isn't a strong event. It's not that your event isn't valuable in your market. But your exhibitors, man, they want instant gratification. They may not be there to sell direct, but they're looking at it from the aisle seemed slower than last year. This brand isn't here. Wow, I'm 5 leads less than I had the year before. Suddenly they're making assumptions on quality, but there have been a number of studies that show that 80% of the leads that your exhibitors get go untouched. So clearly they're not working. It's all assumptions. Whereas attendees, it's much more, hey, Kevin, it's good to see you. Oh, man, I had a great time at dinner last night. Or, wow, I went and this particular brand wined me and dined me, whatever it may be. So really what we're trying to do is find where there is common ground and align those needs as best we can. So if an attendee wants to see new product and that is the driving force, we want to make sure that we're really talking about the exhibitors that are bringing new product to market, because then we can help that exhibitor. They want to get that product out there, but we're also fulfilling a key role or a key need of those attendees.
And was this data compilation surveys? Was it face-to-face? How did you gather the information from the masses?
Everything from online surveys to physical phone calls. We've used third-party vendors to face-to-face conversations to actually bringing in third parties to focus groups on site. So it's a variety of areas where we have found the data, and then we continue to compile this and build upon it and look at it year over year, cycle over cycle. But the key is, I think far too often we run into the trap as show organizers where we sit there and say, wow, I'm going to have to change this next year. It's too late in the cycle. The biggest mistake you can make is wait till next year. Sometimes you're going to have to move on the fly. You're going to have to be nimble. And I think that's a hard lesson to learn. But if you're not nimble, you can't wait. Our cycles are 15, 16 months out. If you wait another cycle, you're dead in the water. You've missed that opportunity. So you have to be way more nimble based on what the market's telling you.
Right. So we've successfully set the stage. Are there any questions currently on where he was, how he gathered the information? The next progression is going to be, we're going to talk to you about what Brian did to sort of right the ship. So as we sit here now, any questions?
Yeah.
Right.
No, not at all. I mean, we do qualify our exhibitors. Certainly, if it's someone that's not appropriate for the business, I'm not going to take a massage chair guy, by any stretch. But really what we want to do is we know that that's an important component for our attendees. So don't get me wrong, this doesn't happen without additional resources. I've got a PR company that helps me do this. I've hired a third-party social media firm to help me do this. And these folks are constantly working in lockstep with our sales team to identify who's launching what they're launching, how they're launching it, what the value proposition is. We'll put this up on everything from our digital press room. We'll put it up on social platforms. We integrate it into our marketing collateral because I know if Viking Ranges is going to launch a new high-end range, listen, that's a value because our designers want that. They've told me that. So, it's another sales hook. It reinforces why they want to come. One of the areas where I think we all fall short is you do this initial registration period. It's free registration if you're a member. But if you look at that group, that's the lowest show-up rate because it's typically at 22, 26 weeks out. They have no skin in the game, so it's easy. Hey, I got busy. I can't go anymore. So it's not just when they register, it's continuing to reinforce why they took that step to register, and you have to reset the hook constantly. And so that information's helpful in doing that.
How many, as you're going through the selling process, how many times did you touch the same exhibitor until you got a conversion rate to a potential exhibitor to a confirmed exhibitor?
Well, and this is where it's difficult. When the market was inflated, it was a call, take it. If you don't take it, I'm on to the next guy. Then the market crashed. And then it was as much about, we do pre-sales. So I go into a given event, I probably have 30 accounts already booked before I get there. Then we have on-site sales. On a typical year, historically, we'd have about a 70, 75% sold for that next year. Now, when the market was crashing, we were having a lot of touches because I was continuing to have to reinforce why they needed to stay in. We're working with them because, hey, they wanted to be out. So, okay, instead of doing this massive boost, why don't we downsize it? So, there were a lot more touches, and really someone wasn't converted to a sale until the show actually staged because we were losing so much. Now we're on the other side of the equation. The last 3 years, I've left the selling process on show site with more space booked than I actually had at that previous event. So now what we're doing is we're focusing on developing new leads, new business, new categories, doing things that would be later on in the cycle, selling sponsorships. I'm 35 weeks out. I'm already actively selling our sponsor programs for 2017. So it's kind of gone from one extreme to another. But I think like anything else, you have to continue that dialogue with your customers. And it's not just so much selling, because again, we want to get away from just selling booth space. It's about understanding how that go-to-market strategy's evolved from day to day, quarter to quarter, year to year.
And what I find interesting is the first question that was asked is, attendee wants new products, exhibitor doesn't have new products. And then Brian just said, he told an exhibitor, maybe you take less space. That's all about aligning what the exhibitor and the attendee needs are. Okay, so if the attendee base is looking for new product and you, Mr. Exhibitor, aren't doing it, me taking your money and promising you something that doesn't exist is an error. So that's part of what creating the engagement is sharing with your constituents what's being looked for. Okay?
How did you change your sales process, and did you change your sales process on site for higher capture?
Yeah, so the evolution of the sales process, it became much more sophisticated. We've always had, going back to when Kevin was there, a very disciplined approach to how you sell. Okay, you're going to hit your renewals here, then after you get through that, you're going to do another effort towards this group, and on and on and on. But really what we did is we tried to reset our expectations, one, but we quit just trying to chase what we perceived as being the low-hanging fruit. Just because a brand had been there a number of years and such size, there was no guarantees that they were going to continue that. So we were constantly looking at where are there new places that we can pull in potential exhibitors, but also what is our call to action? Why should they care? What is the value proposition that we're delivering them? Because they don't direct sell. They just take the leads, they hand it off to a third party and hope that third party does something with it. So how are they valuing that experience? And so we really had to take a step back and understand what was really driving the decision to be there. Sometimes it was, hey, my competitor's there, so I have to be there. Sometimes it was my competitor's not there, so I want a leg up. Sometimes it was, hey, all I care about is if I get the consumer press there to come talk about me in the Wall Street Journal or Elle Decor or House Beautiful, then, man, this is the greatest show ever. But where we were missing the mark is, and it was very difficult to measure, if House Beautiful didn't come and didn't run a story, I wasn't aware before that that's how you valued the show. So when you just quit calling, because let's face it, when exhibitors don't want to renew, very rarely do they get on the phone and say, listen, man, I'm sorry, I can't be there because this, and this, maybe next year. They just don't pick up the phone. So it's all about really understanding how they value the event so that we can have KPIs. And then I think you have to be confident enough in what you're producing to sit there and say, okay, you want to get a front page story in the Wall Street Journal? Let's see, you're not a publicly traded company, you're not a big brand, it's not gonna happen. We need to be very direct and not afraid to tell people this is not a good way to measure your experience. But again, that comes with having that direct dialogue.
Sorry, I have one more question. With the decline, quite a number of us have reduced the rate for 10 by 10. Mm-hmm. Now the struggle is bring it back up.
That is definitely a struggle, and we'll get into a minute to what we've done with the International Builder Show. But since 2013, we've raised our base rate by $9, and I've had zero pushback. Now we've kind of manufactured something. We're clearly outperforming what the market says we ought to do, but I think you should feel bold. But the key is, look at your market. Mass doesn't equate success. If we have a retail event that's predicated really on 90 retailers being there, now they have significantly more than 90 people attending, so there is some value in that, but the success of that event is based on 90 people. So we need to be direct about that. We need to focus on where we can show value, as opposed to, if you don't have packed aisles from 9 to 5 every day, the show stinks. I mean, how many of us have been there on that last day of the show, you're open till 3 o'clock, and at noon, you could roll a bowling ball down the aisle. Remember, that's the last thing people see. The last thing people see is typically gonna be, their final assessment of an event. The first 2 days could have been great, but it was dead. So then they start to question it. One of the values of the way that we go to market, we use A to Z for our sales tool. We do this all on site. We don't want to give them an opportunity to have buyer's remorse. It's very easy to sit there today and say, hey, I want a 2,000 square foot booth. Get back a few weeks later, I don't know. But the fact that we've got such mass and such volume, they can see that the market has clearly embraced us. They're probably not going to talk themselves out of that investment unless there's some underlying circumstance that's out of my control. So, it's managing the perception, because perception can become reality. And I think, while we're not selling booths anymore, in the way you lay out your hall, you can manage the perception. Tighter aisles, be smarter where you're putting people. Know where your dead spots are going to be on the floor. Make sure you get incentivize anchors to not just want to lump around the front. I can't tell you how many times I've seen big brands where people walk right by them. Just because you're at the front door doesn't mean that you're going to have the best experience. Work with people on how are they communicating with the marketplace? What's their message? How are they differentiating themselves for that share of that attendee's time? So I think there's a lot of things that you can do to manipulate that environment to create a better attendee perception and an exhibitor perception.
So, we've set the stage. Now let's fix KBiz. Let's fix KBiz. You had your survey results. Mm-hmm. What did you find? What did they say?
Well, again, we were missing the mark on a number of fronts. And I'll be very honest with you, at the bottom of where we had an attendee net promoter score of -25. Now, when we started tracking that, I freaking didn't understand that you could have a negative on that, but apparently you could. And again, it was a lot of it. I can't control how brands are bringing product to market. The market, it was tough. So R&D got cut when they're bringing things out. So it used to be where they would bring product out every year. Maybe it was every other year. So, we had to react to that as best we could. And, of course, we started the discussion with home builders, which we'll get to, but we said, okay, how can we manipulate that experience? One of the things that we did was called uncontained. And so we wanted to create an experience within the experience to offset the fact that these exhibitors weren't spending money on all the Circus Olay shows and big, F&B blowouts and these parties. So really what this was our attempt to, one, do a lot of generational research. You've got 4 generations in the workforce today, but they all act and interact differently. Their home environment's different. So we hired a third party to really help us dig into how the various generations are living. And then we, used a design firm to take this, this data and conceptualize it in these open-faced containers. It was a really cool experience. It was something that did draw some attention from some press, and it did, kind of push that needle marginally. In hindsight, we spent, just under $500,000, and I don't know that I got anywhere close to recouping that, but it was something that we had to do. Other things that we've done is we started the multimedia lounge. Before, again, benefiting from all this activity on the show floor, we were lacking that. So we wanted to have, some fun, stuffy education on the show floor. So we designed a space where the stage was nothing but a kitchen. And then on the back side, we partnered with our friends at HGTV to, have live feeds to their show and some of their talent around. So again, we were trying to manufacture that experience. But through all this, and what, I don't even know if I got to tell this to Kevin, there were so many things that were going on that just continued to make it more difficult. The big crash in 2009, we actually staged here in Atlanta during the bird flu, which I was like, are you kidding me? We had labor issues in Chicago when, there were all sorts of issues there. Being a rotating show, there were just so many things that were completely out of our control. So we did have to raise our hands up at some point. We created some programs to make sure that we were acknowledging those brands that didn't leave. So you may not have done the booth size that you did at your peak, but you're still there. So we gave some special attention to those that remained loyal. And the best way to do that is by giving them more priority points, which allows them to select a better booth, which makes them feel more important, and so on and so forth. So there were a variety of things that we did. I'd say for every 10 initiatives we threw out, probably 2 of them worked. But the key, and I was talking to Kevin about this morning, is when you go through such radical change, you lose the fear of failure. Because if you don't try something, you're probably not going to be around for much longer. And so we were fighting a battle of perception. And as a result, we were really much more open to risk and potential failure. So there were a lot of things that we took a swing at. Some didn't work, some did.
So tell me about the Home Builders event and the co-location.
So, we've always acknowledged the synergies with home builders. And, there have been various discussions that have happened over the years. But really what it came down to is we thought, okay, is there really an opportunity here? And the beauty is when everyone's egos are kind of checked at the door, you're much more open to that discussion. So we did a simple analysis to look at attended crossover and exhibitor crossover. And when we recognized the opportunity specifically from the audience standpoint, it opened itself up to a greater discussion. We kind of broke down some of those barriers and figured out how we're going to address the market. And we came together with what we call Design and Construction Week. It's bringing together the best of what they do, which is the builder side, with what we do, which is the design side. Builders are constantly looking at kitchen and bath because, you know what, that's the profit center of the home. Conversely, we were more surprised that our designers were so eager to go over and tiptoe around the builder show side. We thought having, Stanley nail gun or Tyvek siding was going to scare these designers because they want the pretty finishes. They want the beautiful bathrooms, the tiles, all of these different elements. It's a very visual, group. To see that, we didn't know how it was going to react, but the crossover has been incredible. In 2014, we had 12,000 builders that registered through IBS that made their way into our show floor that were scanned by our customers. Conversely, we had over 7,000 designers go the other way. So we really looked at this as an opportunity to continue to build on that synergy. And again, it's not about us trying to put a brand in a box and say, here's where we want you. It's what's your go-to-market strategy. If you're more interested in engaging the builder, probably be over here. This is where they're kind of congregating. If you're more interested in the designer or the custom builder, come over here. So it's created a different dynamic with our exhibitors, which I think has been very refreshing for them, and it's something that's continued to grow and evolve, and like I said, we're growing at a pretty rapid clip right now.
What I think is impressive is in his whole dialogue about why the co-location, it was about the attendee and what their need was. This wasn't a money grab for booth space. It wasn't anything other than how do we engage these attendees that we've since lost. Okay, and creating this co-location accomplished that for you. So that
Well,
is.
and I'll just go a step further on that front. So the attendees wanted the big, wow factor. We were able to give that to them by bringing these two shows together. The press, press is important to all of our events, but they're not going to send editors if there's not enough there to make it worth their while. And let's face it, print media has been very challenged in recent years. And then from the exhibitor side, they want to be a part of, I used to equate it, we were at one point in time the keg party that everyone wanted to go to, and then something happened and no one showed up. So we created the keg party that everyone wanted to come to again. And so we were able, by bringing these together, create some synergies that, frankly, we didn't realize we would get, and we didn't know how this was going to work. I mean, a lot of these co-locations just simply don't work, but we are in year 5, or 4, excuse me, and it has been a wonderful experience.
So give me an update. You've implemented these changes. You've done the co-location. You're manufacturing the spectacle again, and things are on the up and up. Where are you going to be next year?
So year 4 of the co-location, we're going to be up in excess of 370,000 square feet. As of yesterday, I think it was at 360. So net square foot continues to grow. We're having very strong double-digit growth, and from an audience standpoint, we're expecting in the neighborhood of 40,000 people. And the interesting thing is as we have taken a step back from an Emerald perspective, we're realizing synergies that we have within our own portfolio that we haven't leveraged. So we're certainly doing that. We're going from Las Vegas, where you tend to pull 25% of your audience is coming from LA, to now we're going to Orlando, and I expect we're going to draw heavily on the Eastern Seaboard. Get the New York designers all the way to Chicago and down. So we're able to really engage a new and expanding audience. And because the show's growing at such a pace, we're no longer fighting that, well, from an attendee standpoint, I'm going to come every other year because there's nothing new to see. There's always something new to see now. So finally got some positive win in our sales, and we're growing probably year over year quicker than the event ever has.
Yeah. So most of us know as the attendees come, the exhibitors start getting frantic. And what am I going to do? What's next? What's next? You've seen the collapse. You had all these mega booths, and it didn't work out because the value proposition there. What are you and your staff doing now to tell Kohler that giant booth space isn't necessarily what's best for you, but here are these engagement opportunities?
So we've focused a lot of time and effort, again, on needs assessment, understanding their go-to-market strategy, and we're not afraid to tell someone that's not sustainable. I've turned away booths because I don't want to be in the business of the guy that's here 1 year. Clearly, we're not able to give them an opportunity to achieve that ROI, and then they just don't come back. So we really have a longer-term view with our customers. We're looking at many years out, and so by understanding what's important to them, we can help consult with them on not just what size space you ought to be doing, but how you're going to man that, how are you going to position it, how are you differentiating yourself. I mean, it's more than I bought the booth, now I'm going to show up. We want them to have some skin in the game. How are you communicating your message to the marketplace? What are you doing in advance to let people know that you're there, and why should they ultimately care? Because as the event is getting so big, we still have that 3-day period. And those attendees are, our surveys are telling us, staying there almost the entire time. It's like 2.7 days. So they're pressed for time. So how do we help this brand be very surgical in who they're talking to, what that call to action is, and then measure against that. So it's not, you can't just throw this spread shot out and I want everyone to come, because not everyone's going to care. It's who do you specifically want to engage, and how can we create a roadmap to do that?
Absolutely. So knowing what you know now, how would you have lessened the blow of the show's decline?
Given the just extreme environment we're in, I don't know if there's much that we could have done to stop the skid, make it any less painful. Now, on the flip side of that, being on the backside of the worst recession since the Great Depression, my team is much better positioned for success. I think that I can say with a high degree of certainty, we won't fall victim to the same market issues, but it's because we're creating a different relationship with our customers. We're not selling booth space, I'm selling solutions. I'm selling an audience. And I think that it was really probably the best thing that could have happened to the group long term and frankly to me professionally.
Absolutely. So you and I discussed, and you recognize that you've righted the ship. It's heading in the right direction. What do you have to do on a yearly basis to continue the evolution? I mean, you can't just rest on the laurels.
Absolutely. So now we've continued to shift our attention. We've got a group of industry professionals that we rely on, some of which are our PR assets, which are also in the business, our social media assets, which also are incidentally in the business, key group of exhibitor advisors. I'm able to leverage a key group of advisors for our magazine kitchen bath business that are architects, designers, dealers, etc. And we continue to bounce ideas off these folks, but we also encourage them to be a part of the solution. Hey, if you got an idea, bring it to the table. And every year we probably kick around 10 or 12 different things that we're going to try. Maybe we only try 2 or 3, but we're constantly trying to evolve, offer something different based on an opportunity we see. And we're really focused on engaging people that don't know about us. Anyone in this business will tell you, probably the average age of your exhibit or your attendees probably anywhere between 40 and 55. We know they're on the back half of their career, and we're all scratching our heads saying, what are we going to do when they all retire? So you have to lay the foundation now. We continue to do that. We're using social media channels to use community engagement. And if I find a stakeholder that suddenly tries us and has a good experience, I'm now open to them talking to their community about how great we are and why they should try it. And so, we're still creating a product that's true to the core that made us great, but we're very focused on where the business will be 5-10 years from now.
Absolutely. So the moral of this story and the reason we're up here, you can't operate in these silos because that's where the mistakes happen. If you go to market and say, I'm getting these exhibitors, why? If you're not dragging along the attendee, there is no engagement. You're just selling something that you personally have no control over fulfilling. It's these intersections right here, and show organizers are included too. You all have a stake in this game. So it's this intersection that is value, okay? That is where success happens. That's where Brian's having success bringing his show back around. I'll open the floor to any questions, and then we'll wrap up. Any questions?
We've considered it as a company. It's not something we've yet said I think that we're ready to go down that path. I think that's very difficult. It's a slippery slope if you sit there and suddenly say this piece of real estate is worth more than that piece of real estate, because now you're devaluing the back half of your event. You know that everyone wants to be in a certain position. Now we know that we have to continue to press back, go deeper into our halls. Now suddenly you're saying that that's not worth as much as that. I'm personally not comfortable with that dynamic because we're a reflection of the marketplace. And yeah, we create and build this city for this period of 3 days. Frankly, we should be doing a good enough job where we're able to put different experiences around the floor that will drive traffic. So I've told exhibitors this before. I could put you on the loading dock and drive traffic there if you give me an opportunity to create a strong enough call to action. So for us, it's about we want to give member benefits. So members that exhibit, they get a price that reflects that. Then there's an advanced rate to encourage them to sign up early. Then there's a standard rate, and we've kept it pretty simple.
We have another question.
Brian, the comment was made before about pricing. Did you lower exhibit pricing when?
No, we capped it when the market collapsed. We did not raise it for a period of 4 years, but we never once dropped price. Now, what we did offer to try and help some of our exhibitors out is we did some subsidies through our general service contractor for what we dubbed as our loyalty group, people that had stayed in the show every year through that downturn. That gave them some discounts on drayage and labor, but that was all stuff that was completely subsidized by us, and we thought that was a better path than saying, okay, we're gonna go from $35 to $30.
Brian? As two originally standalone huge shows, is the goal for the future as you continue to grow and as IBS continues to grow to stay the course as Design Week or to establish back on your own ground?
You know, all that's up for discussion. Like any relationship, we have terms to those contracts. You know, it's working well, so I don't see us changing. But you know, we've been very targeted in how we approach this. Design Construction Week is a great way for us to take an institutional term known as co-location and make it sticky for the audience. They don't know what co-location is, nor do they care. That's really our terminology. But we've also been very specific about maintaining our brand integrity, as have they. So as we're going to market, Home Builders is still marketing to their builders as they always would. They're still presenting their offerings, their education, their learning, their value proposition. We're doing the same for KBIS. The benefit to them is it doesn't matter what path you come through, you now have access to all of these events. So, we've maintained an independent business, but we're very pleased with the results from the co-location. And at this point, I think we're open to continuing it for the long haul.
Any more questions? Okay, give me a moment. I'll try. Good thing what was my question?
Hi. I have two questions for you. The first year after your co-location, you mentioned that you saw a huge percentage of your attendees go over to the the Home Builders show. Did you see that steady stream year after year?
Yeah. Actually, every year it's continued to grow. Now, I will say this. I'd love to tell you we had this all mapped out when we took the leap to do the co-location. It was a hard sell. So for those that don't know, Emerald manages the Kitchen and Bath show on behalf of the National Kitchen and Bath Association. Then you have Home Builders, which they run their own show. So we had 3 different groups trying to broker this deal and 3 different groups of lawyers trying to muddy up the waters. So, we really had to manage the expectation, especially to the stakeholders on our end being NKBA, that they're not going to lose their identity. So there was a leap of faith on all parts, but we really, truly didn't know how the market would embrace it. We knew the exhibitors would love it because we identified a crossover group, and suddenly they're really getting 2 shows for the price of 1. But the audience, we made some assumptions, and the only bit of advice I'd give everyone is don't try and make decisions based on assumptions. You always want to validate it with data. But because this had never been done before, we had to take a leap of faith. And fortunately, it has worked out wonderfully. So we continue to find ways to leverage those synergies to our benefit and make it more meaningful, where we're getting designers to meet up with builders may not have ever connected before. Now you have new networking opportunities.
Okay, thank you. My second question is, how do you engage an apathetic exhibitor group with all of these wonderful incentives or new programs that you're instituting, and get them to even read the information that's in the packet of all the new programs you're trying to implement to help them?
Well, again, I think that comes down to when you're having the conversations with your customers. You need to have some leading questions, some implication questions. Make them think about how they're cohabitating in this larger experience. Remind them that those key buyers that are coming through only have so much time to be there. So what are they doing to differentiate themselves? The more exhibitors you can get converted to the thought process that, hey, listen, it's not just buying a booth and showing up. I actually have to do something here. I think the better off you are. And it is an ongoing learning experience. And I'd love to tell you that 100% of our exhibitors are, it is a true relationship. We still have those that are transactional, but I can comfortably say that's based on their prerogative, not ours. We want to maintain a relationship. We want to be a partner and a consultant to them. We want to be I get customers all the time that'll call me up and say, well, what do you think about this? Should I try that? That's exactly where you want to be. So it's an ongoing dialogue. You just have to continue the discussion, and slowly but surely you'll convert them.
So we're about to get the playoff music here from
we are?
from the Academy. What I'll leave you with is I hope that I scared you a little, provided you a little hope, because the next group of speakers, the next round of content, is going to help you re-engineer your event to the extent that it needs to be. Real estate sales in trade shows isn't long-term success, it's short-term success. On the Pokin board back there are both Brian's information on his uncontained feature, and then the Shepard Organizer Success Guide, which walks you through the process of finding engagement on your event. So without further ado, I'll bring Richard back up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.